Am I in sort of range in terms of the microphone? Is that about the right pitch or volume? I did a presentation like this at a big hotel, and there's about 250 people in the auditorium. And they mic'd me up, and I said, you know, can everybody hear me? Can you hear me at the back? And one wag stood up and said, I can hear you, but I'll gladly change with someone who can't. I don't think it was over fair. I haven't actually started yet. So, but thank you very, very much for the invite to come here and be the keynote speaker. I'm literally inundated with an email from Jenny in terms of the invitation, which I was very pleased about and very proud to attend your event. She actually said, you know, your name was given to me by, you know, a friend who recommended you highly. So, Ginny, I'll give you half an hour and you'll probably work out that that person won't be on your Christmas card list anymore. But the session has given me about half an hour, and if we can keep this sort of fairly transient, moving and light on its feet. And one of the things I want to do is perhaps sort of cut away some of the fear, the phobia and the mystery surrounding equality and diversity and how it fits into the new inspection framework. And as I've got on my second slide, what on earth are they looking for? So if we can keep this sort of, as I say, fairly light in terms of the way it's sort of been presented. Obviously, the serious messages that I want to get over to you, but hopefully we can have a smile and a bit of a joke and one or two anecdotes at the same time. At least you didn't boo. I did some work for the Army once, and they got a grade 1 on their inspection. And when I went to do some work for them for quality, I sort of came in and they said, we'd like to welcome, and I walked through the door and they resoundingly booed me. So at least you haven't done that, so I'm grateful for that. So let me just take you through some of the key themes that I want to, as I said on the warm-up there, is that notion of what on earth are they looking for. So hopefully, one of the things we'll get over this afternoon is to give you some sort of clarity and go back and prepare for great things in terms of your own institution. I'll say from the outset, there's no charm or mystery to this. I'm an inspector, yeah, but I wasn't born an inspector. And if anybody's read the brief, I've been around education a long time, 20, 25 years, been part of a grade 1 department. So I've got the badge, I can do the job, so it's about actually conveying that and working out how to either improve or judge other providers. And just a final quickie, people will ask me this afternoon of my opinion on things. Remember, inspectors have no opinion, they only judge what they see. And offend or please, I'm the only man in our family. I've got 2 daughters and a wife, 2 teenage daughters and a wife. My opinion went out the window a long time ago. So if anybody says, you know, what is your opinion on something, it's a question I will look blank at and, you know, something I've not responded to before. So there's a lot of formal stuff here in terms of jargon. Let's see if we can unpick it as we go through. So what on earth are they looking for? Inspector turns up, or a team of inspectors turn up, what are they going to poke around in your rhubarb and look for? Okay, the first point's quite important here. It's not about testing your compliance for things like legislation. All right, so it's not about sort of counting the number of folders on your shelves and looking at how many beans make 5 and how you've met and you put maps and what sort of thing is here. The second, you know, the facet of that is does it do anything? Does it change anything? And do you know what it does? Do you know what it changes? And this is the bit that's the change, if you like, from the old framework to this framework. Whereas before we sort of went along and said, we've got a policy for that, we've got a policy for that, policy, that's fantastic. Sure, policies, love it. You know, Home Office, policies, fantastic. Lots of words, we love all that. The key thing now is do those policies actually mean anything? Does it do any good? And the crucial bit is, does it have an impact on learners? Because frankly, if it doesn't have an impact on learners, you chuck money away, I have to say, in terms of putting all these folders and files together. So remember, an inspector's world is very much about the learner. We're their advocate. We look at what their experience is and say, that's fantastic, that's a great opportunity, that's tremendous. This institution, this provider, has really moved heaven and earth for this young person. Or we look at it and say, that wasn't much of a deal. Where the poor student, poor trainee, poor apprentice has really had the butt end of things. So those are the sort of judgments we made. Now, we are explicit now in terms of looking at different groups, where we can see that there is some sort of differential. So if we find that females in the department are clearly outstripping males, then we'll report on it. If we find that age group, if we find that ethnicity, whatever it is, gender, whatever it might be, if it can be seen, sampled and represented, that the performance of these groups is different from the norm, the average, okay, then we will report on it, both good and obviously converse, it may well be bad. So those are sort of two clear things that we're looking at. Don't get too hung up. We often got to have all the legislation in place, but that's not Ofsted's role to say, well done, you're compliant, and hit you with a rubber stamp on the forehead. We look behind it and say, well done, that's fantastic. A smarter set of policies I haven't seen. Terrific. And I'll spend hours reading them. Let's get on the ground. Let's ask students what they think about the experience that they receive. So, what have we got here? This is the minimum evidence that an inspector will look for, okay? Now the first point there is evidence of actions and impact relating to the operating principles, which I'll just bring up on the next slide. So it's all about impact. We do something, so what? And that is an inspector's mantra. So one thing you'll learn today, if you've not been inspected or not gone under the cosh from one of my nice colleagues, is we have a mantra, and it's so what? It's a fantastic file with a policy in it, so what? If the students are unhappy, disenchanted, not performing, through whatever reason, then that policy isn't effective. So it's about actually looking at evidence of actions and impact. Now the key one there, if we're going to make a difference to a young person's world, life experience, her life, whatever, it is about making sure that staff are fully clued in terms of equality and diversity and how their processes, teaching, tutoring, reviewing, support, all impact on that. Now, the throwaway comment that I still receive is, oh, equality, diversity, yeah, we cover that in great depth on induction. And yeah, that's terrific. Where else are we? Where am I going to find it? Where would I trip over? Signpost it for me. You know, where am I going to trip over it? That's a sort of slightly staggering approach that it needs to be pervasive throughout everything that the provider does, and obviously then will change hearts and minds in terms of the young person's experience. So staff awareness is crucial. I do a lot of work with staff and for individual providers. One of the things I did for them, I said, here's some questions that you could ask your students in tutorials or one-to-one reviews. These are things that you could, for example, bring in and introduce into the conversation. You could use them to assess a trainee, a learner, apprentice's awareness of key E&D issues. So I went back and sampled what they'd done. And perhaps I phrased the question wrong, I don't know. But give an example of equality and diversity working in your curriculum area. And for the plumbers, I got men and women's toilets. Now, you're sort of going, what? I was as confused as you. When I spoke to the plumber who did the review, he said, I don't understand the question either, and I don't know what the answer is. Now we have a bit of a change here. So it's not necessarily always about changing the hearts and minds of learners, but it's also about getting staff involved in terms of changing their hearts and mind of how effective the staff development that they receive is. Rather than saying, and staff have said this to me, I've sat down with a group of staff and said, what have you done this year on equality and diversity? What have you done on racial relations? What have you done on this act, that act? They look at you blank and they go, that's the one we did above the pub, isn't it? They look at their colleagues, oh, the food was awful, I remember that. And I'm thinking, well, the thing you remember, the food was awful. That was a key note. You didn't come back and actually implement any of the things that were discussed and promoted. So that's a bit of a worry and a concern. So it is very much about, not as inspectors looking at what the students know and don't know, but it's illuminating talking to staff, how much they know and how much they don't know on E&D. The final bit, okay, I'm sure any of you will join with me in the celebration that a mistake isn't a mistake if we've learned something from it. And there will be incidents, there will be complaints, there will be comments made, there will be things that need to be reported, there are things that need to go to the trustees, the governors, whatever it is. The crucial thing there is it going to change anything you do? One provider, I went into the gents' toilet and I came out and I went and saw the CEO and I said, what are you doing about the toilets? I said, I've seen homophobic graffiti in there. I said,